Welcome back to the channel, welcome back to the vlog, and welcome back to another episode of my series Behind the Raw, where I take you with me onto Lightroom Classic and I talk you through and edit a full workflow, my thoughts in a particular image and any mistakes that I would have made so that you don't have to. Now, before I start this is going to be the last episode of Behind the Raw that will be on YouTube. So if you've been following my journey, I've started to go and create a Patreon page, and it's been phenomenal so far with the support that I've received there. But one of the items I wanted to migrate over there is this series Behind the Raw. So if you want to continue watching this, why not jump over onto Patreon and join us there, because we're creating a phenomenal community. So without further ado, I want to talk about this week's image. So this week's image is from my trip to Sligo, and I did this back in November with my two good buddies, Patrick and Dermot. And this was an interesting one for me because it was a typical day of photography. And, you know, if you go out, you don't always get exactly what you're looking for, and you get many different opportunities to find different photographs. And this day in particular, we started in one location with almost clear blue skies, you know, flat calm waters, and then the mist came in, and then we started to chase the mist. Then we couldn't pull over to find anywhere to be able to photograph the mist. We stopped in one area, got a couple of photographs of a cascade, and then we decided to head out to a location that Patrick had recommended. And to be fair, it would have been a lovely location, except we were driving into this fog and this mist. So when we finally arrived in our destination for sunset, we had traveled so far we couldn't move away, so we said, okay, let's make the most of what we got. And this is where it got interesting, because it was a flat grey day. There wasn't any texture whatsoever, but there was some nice waves, and on those waves there were two surfers. So we broke out the super long lenses, my Sigma 150 to 600, and managed to get a couple of shots of them surfing. But the image I want to edit today is one where it's purely by chance, and that's typically what I find with landscape photography. You can have all the planning you want in the world, but you still have to be lucky. And I got one shot of a seagull, of all things, which was flying across the front of the scene, and right underneath that seagull was a wave breaking. And I was lucky enough that I was zoomed in, I got it in focus, and I had the fast enough shutter speed as well to be able to freeze the action absolutely perfectly. So we're going to jump over here onto Lightroom Classic, and I'll talk you through the edit on the image. Let's go. Okay, so here we are now for this image, and like I said, it's about opportunity and about luck. So what I have effectively is a single seabird flying across the scene, but I was lucky that the waves were breaking behind it. Now, like I said from the outset here, if I look at the settings that I'd taken the shot at, now as I said, it was quite dark and quite grey and flat. So I was shooting this at 1/1000 of a second. I was at f6.3, which is the widest that I can go when I zoom in on my 150 to 600 lens. So my ISO was up at 1000, and that's unusual for me because I'm a landscape photographer. I was at 531 mils, so you know, almost pretty much zoomed in fully. But I'm lucky that I managed to spot the bird and then pan across and take the shot as the bird was going across the scene. Now, within this image here, if I very quickly zoom in, you'll see that there's a lot of noise around this area. And that's why, because I'm shooting at 1/1000 of a second, also ISO 1000 as well. So we'll see how Lightroom will fix that now when it comes to the edit. So all I'm going to do effectively on this one here is very little in reality, because there's not much for us to play with within the scene. But moreover as well, I think within this all over image, I want to have a kind of a less is more approach anyway, because it was very minimalist or basic scene. There's not much within the frame. But straight away for me, the star of the show on that is this bird, and then the supporting actors here are the two waves that are breaking right behind it. So I want to bring as much attention to that as I possibly can. So starting out, what I'll do is I'll go into my basic, and as you know, if you watch these episodes, I will always click on the auto just to show you the power of what auto can do. And as you can see here, what it's done is it's brightened up the image quite a lot, and you can see exactly now how flat grey the actual whole entire scene was. You can barely make out the horizon as well here in the background. But I want to kind of play with the nuances that I have within this image. So I'm going to reset this. And what I'm going to start off by doing here is I'm going to look at my horizon, because when I had this, if I go back into auto again, you can see my horizon is here. So if I'm now going to be able to fix that, I want to make sure that I'm straightening out the horizon. It's only slightly off, but not much. So before I do that, I need to make sure that I reset the image. And now I'm going to just go in here, brighten this up fully so that I can see in the background where the horizon is, and let's see how much of a adjustment I need to do. Pretty much that, I would say. So 0.23 degrees of an adjustment. So that's all I need to do from that. So now if I click back out of this here, go into our settings. So I'm going to, like I say, bring out the details within that. So I'm going to reset my exposure so I can see where I'm at. And now what I want to do is I want to look and say, okay, how much do I need to play with within this image, and what do I need to do? So for me, I think it's going to be pretty straightforward in what I need to do. So I'll give you an idea here when we start to go into the edit of the image. So I want to bring up my exposure, and I'm going to bring that up, bring it up by 1 stop. I think that's going to give enough of a boost in regards to the overall image. Now on my highlights, I do want to bring those down, so I'm going to drop that down probably around maybe 15. Actually, you know what, we'll go around 17. We'll drop the highlights down to 17. And now I want to bring back up my shadows. So I want to get more detail in this area here. So if I bring my shadows back up here and we go to 20, let's go 32. Yeah, let's go 32, not 33, that'll do us, okay. And now I want to bring up my whites, but I have to be very careful with my whites here, because if I bring up my whites, I'm going to lose this texture. If I look at here, the texture in that water. So if I bring my whites up too much, you see that these become too bright. So if I give you a look here again, we're not losing the detail, we're getting enough of that, and I think that's enough for me to be able to bring that up. And now if I go back out again and I want to bring my blacks down, so I want to darken down this part of the wave here, I'm going to reduce my blacks, and you'll see that area now is going to start darkening back down. It's also going to darken any areas in the bird as well, but there's not much obviously within the bird. So we're going to bring our blacks down by probably around about that much here, I think, and I'm going to look at my whites and just see is there any more that I can bring up. If I bring that further up here, 26, and I'm pushing it now, you see you're starting to lose the texture here on that. I think probably around 33 is the max that I can get on that. Now, 2 sliders that I generally don't use, but I am going to use them here, is my texture slider and my clarity slider. Why? Because I want to add in more texture here into the water. So if I look at my texture here, I want to bring it up, and I'm bringing it up quite considerably, but I'm going to let my eye guide me. So if I go all the way up here, you see how crunchy this water becomes. I don't want to do that, but I want to have a fair amount in it, but not too much. So I'm probably going to go around about maybe a 30 on the texture. I think that should be enough. If I reset that, we'll see what it does. Yeah, it just adds enough texture into the water. And now I'm also going to bring up my clarity. So I'm going to bring this back to 30. Clarity back up here. And if I give more clarity or less clarity, you see what it does to the image here. So you can see that it really softens the image and there's less clarity. But I might not have a small bit of clarity on that. So I'm going to add a small amount, which is maybe, yeah, I think 15 will do me. Generally, I don't necessarily need to do any dehaze because, as you can see, the horizon was non-existent here. The whole thing was fog. But if I look at the dehaze and see what it's going to do, it's going to really give the image much more darkness and more punch. So if I'm going to give it that, probably maybe around about 18, I think is enough for that. And then what I want to start doing is looking at the color. So I want this to be kind of a moody image and a kind of a cold image because it was cold and miserable on the time we took the shot. So I'm going to, on this occasion, reduce my vibrance. So I'm going to bring my vibrance down quite a lot because I don't necessarily want any of the kind of minute colors that are there. So I'm going to bring that down. Minus 40 I think will do fine. And now if I look at my white balance as well, I want to change that. And I'm going to drop it down to around 5400, and that's going to give more of a blue tone, so cold, which is what I wanted to try and achieve here. And now if I look at that here, this is a better balanced image, I think. Now overall, I think what I want to do now on that next is look at my crop. So I want to bring this to 16:9 because I don't think that the full aspect of the image is actually adding more because there's nothing here on the top. So if I bring this down to here, now we have more of a balanced image. We're using the rule of thirds. The bird is just off of the right hand third, but this wave is on the left hand third. So, and also the bird is going from left to right, so your eye should go from left to right on this. And you wonder where the bird is going to end up. Now also, if I go in here to my detail panel, you'll know if you're watching these that I'd always go in and do denoise, but I'm going to do that last. But what I do want to do is come down here into effects and I want to give a vignette and darken out the outsides of the image and bring more of the eye into the center. You're going to see that anyway, but I wanted to kind of help that along. Now if I go into lens correction as well, I want to make sure that everything has been picked, so it has automatically here, so chromatic aberration has been removed, and profile correction, so you can see it's the Sigma 150 to 600 and it's using the Adobe profile. Now if I go in here and I look at these, I've got one that's set up for Canon, one that's set up for Nikon, and then one which is purely on the Sigma. And if I click on the Sigma one here, you don't see much difference in the image here in the profile, so I think I'm going to stick with the Canon. And then I think what I'm ultimately going to do here is look and say, all right, what can I bring more out from the histogram point of view? So if I take my blacks and I bring those slightly down, I'll darken down the image here a bit more. If I take my highlights and I bring those up slightly, we'll give a bit of brightness to the image, but I have to be conscious that I'm not losing this texture in this water. And that's the important part for me. Now I am going to remove that noise, and you're going to see a big difference here when we start looking at the denoise. So I'm going to leave it on this frame right now, and then I'm going to go down to detail here and I'm going to click on denoise, and we should see a massive difference here. So I'm going to move this out of the way here. So it's now, as you can see, on the bird, and now if you look here, all around this has been drastically improved. But I'm going to bring this up because I don't think I'm going to have much more that I need to do after I do this. So this is going to run the denoise, and let's have a look and see how that's going to look overall on the image. So if we look back out again here, actually, let's go back in, and you can see all of this noise around this bird. It's going to take probably around maybe 6 or 7 more seconds for it to do it, but it's incredible what it can actually do to be able to improve your overall image. And I know that a lot of people use this as well from a wildlife point of view. I'm not a wildlife photographer, so I don't need it for that, but on this occasion, because I had to shoot at such a fast shutter speed, because I had to bring up my ISO, you can see now what it has done to that image, and it's vastly improved the image here as well, without making the bird feel painterly as well. So that's us zoomed in here at 200%. If we go back here now to fit to frame, I think we have a finished image. Now, looking at this overall, what I want to make sure of is that, you know, I've got no sensor spots. So the trick that I normally use on this here is if I go in here to dehaze and I whack dehaze all the way up, you see that the image, and make this bright as well just for argument's sake, we'll see if we've got any sensor spots or any dust spots. We don't, that's fine. So I can bring that back out and this back out, and that's my image done. So thank you very much as always for watching this final episode on YouTube of Behind the Raw, but I hope you've enjoyed seeing my approach to the editing process. I'd like to thank everybody who has joined me on Patreon, and thank these awesome people for being my early adopters and my early Patreons on that entire, and that's going to be an interesting platform, I think. I'm really building a phenomenal community. It's early days yet, but I'm excited for what we can do. So thank you very much, like I said, for watching. Be sure to join me on Sunday for my next episode, which will be this episode up here, and I cannot wait to share this part of the adventure with everybody. And YouTube would like you also to watch this episode here. So hit the subscribe button, give me a like, give me a comment, and until the next time, slán go fóill.